ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first and potentially, and quite possibly, most likely, most exciting press conference we'll have had here today at the 25th World Economic Forum on Africa in Cape Town, South Africa. Welcome to you all. Welcome to our audience who are watching us live on our website, weforum.org. Now, the purpose of this press conference is to announce the launch of a campaign, that Poverty is Sexist. So the latest initiative from the innovative One campaign, who we're pleased to work with on a regular basis here in the World Economic Forum on Africa. It's a story of women's empowerment and how to address the gender balance. Of course, it's a dear subject to us here at the World Economic Forum. We publish the Global Gender Gap Report every year, assessing and creating a measurement of countries' progress towards gender parity. We believe you can't improve if you can't measure, but actually there are other steps you can take to drive women's empowerment. And this is what the good work of the One campaign and many others are doing. So without further ado, I'll hand over to our first speaker, Sifo Moyo, my friend and the Executive Director, Africa of the One campaign.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. And as Oliver said, this is probably one of the most exciting things we've done. We just keep finding more and more exciting ones. So this is the African Union's Year of Women's Empowerment. And in a sense, to support that, we decided we were going to have run this campaign that's called Poverty is Sexist. And, but it is also the year when the world leaders will converge in New York in September to decide on the new development agenda, which will replace the Millennium Development Goals. It is also the year that a strong African woman, Dlamini Zuma, is chairing a global process and the AU summit next week in Johannesburg. And another strong woman, Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, is also chairing a global process, the G7, next week. So it's really a year when you can't have a better opportunity than this to refocus the attention of the world on the challenges of women and girls in the world. And this is actually a global phenomenon, but of course here we're really focusing on Africa. And here's what we found. We found that actually the barriers that militate against women and girls are essentially structural. That means whether you're looking at it from a political point of view, an economic point of view, a social cultural point of view, and sometimes even a statutory and legal point of view, there's a lot that's stacked up against the empowerment of women and girls. So we've published a report, which all of you will get a copy of. Actually, you already all have a copy of. And that report looks at, education, looks at the outcomes in health. It also looks at, transparency and accountability in budgeting, specifically budgets being targeted at women and girls. And what we're finding, for example, in health, a woman giving birth in Africa is 100 times more likely to die in childbirth than a woman giving birth in Europe or North America. That's a startling and alarming statistic right there. In education, parents with limited resources are more likely to send the boy child to school before they send a girl child to school. Only 26% of the girls that should be in school in Africa are in school. And if they're lucky enough to be in school, they spend half the day fetching water and firewood and so on. So this really speaks to the policy issues that need to be addressed, like investments in energy, investments in water and sanitation, investing in the health systems, period. We've seen the fragility of African health systems with the recent Ebola attacks, Ebola crisis and so on. So this is what the report is looking at. And what is the purpose of our campaign? The purpose of our campaign is, one, to raise the awareness. Like I said, since Beijing 1995, there hasn't been another moment that the world has actually focused its attention on women and girls. So one, we want the world to focus on women and girls. And secondly, we're also asking for our leaders at the AU summit next week to agree a really strong declaration for women and girls. And thirdly, we want to make sure that the Sustainable Development Goals are really with the lens of women and girls. And to popularize the campaign, we're here with the artists who performed a song, a music video called Strong Girl, and it's a music video that it's a collaboration of Africa's really top women, strong girls. They're here, and maybe you'll get a chance to hear them. But maybe I should leave it there, Oliver, in the interest of time, and wait for questions and answers.
We'd like to have some questions, so thank you very much, Sifo. We're delighted again to be joined by Judith Sapuma, a singer. Obviously needs no introduction, but representing the Strong Girls singers up here at the media briefing. Please, Judith, do you have any words to say about this project?
I just wanted to say hello to everyone on behalf of all the artists across the country in the continent, from all different parts of our country. We got together as women from Nigeria, Tanzania, Mozambique, Gabon, and also there's a young lady as well from the Miriam Makeba shelter who joined in the song just to add value, because, you know, we believe that as artists, from as powerful as we are, we believe we are powerful as artists. We can make a huge difference and people can actually listen. We have a very strong fan base, all of us individually, differently in our own countries. And this, as we become the voice of poverty against sexist, we believe that we will be heard and the leaders, our leaders will pay attention. Thank you.
Great, okay. I think we're ready for a performance. We'll have questions afterwards. Keep that question on hold. Are we ready? Are we ready for a performance? Okay, I'm just going to introduce our singers, if I may. Please do stand up. Ariel T. Come join us. We have YJ from Nigeria. Ariel's from Gabon. YJ's from Nigeria. Selmore from Zimbabwe. And Gabriella from Mozambique. Can we have the music backing track, please? Maybe here. Yeah, in front of the cameras.
Yeah. What are you more comfortable with?
We can do it here. Yeah.
It's your show. So. You take your badges off if you want to. I can see they want to take. You can take them off.
Yeah, yeah. Oh. And I was stronger when I was stronger, when I was stronger. Show the world that you're a strong girl. You're a strong girl. You'll be stronger. American baby, it doesn't matter where you're from, you're a strong lady. Tu es une femme, une maman africaine, une femme forte, reste forte, tu sais. 'Cause we're stronger. If we stand together, we can make it alright. So na mine, what in the face, what in the boat. So na you'll be stronger when I was stronger. When it's stronger,
you hey, show the world that you're a strong girl. You're a strong girl.
I say you'll be stronger. Even Chaka Chaka, Genevieve and Naji.
Strong girl.
Stronger.
Strong girl.
Judith Sepuma. W-A-J-E. Stronger. Stronger.
Jino ya menguva, yegu simudzira mudzimai. Ukasimudzira mudzimai, wasimudzanyika.
Nous sommes l'avenir, l'espoir d'un monde béni. D'ailleurs et d'ici, nous portons la vie.
Devemos gritar, está na hora de nos expressar. Mais poder para as mulheres.
Oh, anywhere you dare, let them know say you be stronger. When I was stronger, when it's stronger.
Everywhere you are, show the world that you're a strong girl. You're a strong girl.
Let them know say you be stronger.
Stronger.
Come on, everybody, let me see you do this. Come on, stronger, 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 stronger.
expressar mais poder no mundo.
D'une femme forte, femme africaine. Oh, 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 strong girl.
Strong girl,
Hey,
strong girl,
hey,
strong girl,
strong girl, strong girl, strong girl, strong girl. Yeah, des femmes en or, ensemble nous explosons tous les records. Yeah, des Gokinda, levons-nous pour se voir.
we are strong.
Yeah.
WAJE is a strong girl. Dr. Sipo is a strong girl. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Amazing. I think we're going to have to try to do something similar in all our media briefings for the rest of the meeting to match that. We've got a few minutes left, so let's have some questions if anybody has any. And please feel free to direct questions at our amazing performance artists here as well. Gentleman at the back.
My name is Jan-Philipp Schlüter. I'm from the German radio. Good morning. Thank you for the performance. I have two questions, maybe one to Ms. Moyo and one to the artists. The first is, when I look around this program, it's so huge over those 3 days. You know, even we journalists struggle to know what we should cover, what we should do. How difficult is it to make your voice heard with your ideas in your program compared with all the other programs that are here? And the second question concerning the song, for us Germans, how we would say this is typical German, typical African young ladies singing, dancing, having a good mood for a very serious matter. How typical is it? And is it difficult to bring over this good sense, this kind of humor or fun to address this very serious issue?
So how do you get us noticed? How do you get this campaign noticed in a busy day? And how do you take that, go and build on that to actually get stuff done?
I think we've been fortunate. We've had a partnership with WEF over the past few years, so we're able to bring that to the World Economic Forum. Difficult is not the word, but there's a lot of competing and interesting events and so on going on. So people really kind of are trying to choose between so many great things they could be doing at the same time. But let me talk about the campaign and the way we work at One. There's so many different components that go into shaping a campaign. And one of them is working with popular culture. Working with popular culture is important because these guys have such a huge fan base, whether you're talking about their Twitter followers or their Facebook fans, friends, and so on. And that is how we reach the young people of Africa, because that's really who we're speaking to on this continent. They're 75% of the population. So working with artists is really a great way to reach the people, to reach the young people, get them interested in really serious issues. And what I'm really proud of is that we're able to draw artists from all over the continent. Last year we did a campaign on agriculture. We had, 19 artists from every single corner of this continent, northwest, south, east, and central. This year, you heard the countries. Judith is from South Africa. We have Selmo from Zimbabwe, Gabriela from Mozambique, Ariel T from Gabon, and you heard them singing in different languages even, and that's important for us. Waje from Nigeria, we have Omotola, who is not here, who is also from Nigeria. So that's important because it helps us to reach Africans all over the continent by working with them. But then, of course, there's the, this is the sizzle part of what we do. There's the wonky side of what we do, as, policy advocates, where we lobby the policymakers. We work with, leaders, with ministers of finance, ministers of, health, and so on, with the heads of states even, because that's how we get, the policy commitments that we're looking for. And then we work with the grassroots, where we have, and when we do policy forums, that's when we bring everybody together. We bring the policymakers, we bring the civil society organizations, we bring the women's associations, we bring the private sector even, and have a real discussion in in every country that we're working in to say, what are the real challenges in this country? What are the priorities? What do you want to see changed? From that, we distill what we're hearing from those different policy forums, and what we get from there is what we then distill into policy recommendations that we then hand to the leaders and say, this is what Africans are saying, and these are the changes we would like to see happen. So, and I would like also to introduce, if Oliver hasn't already, that have joined us on the stage, two really important and key players when it comes to fighting and promoting women's issues globally and in Africa. Dr. Kitui, who is the head of UNCTAD. UNCTAD does a lot of work, especially in terms of, advocating for jobs for women, advocating for jobs for women and job creation through trade, and so on and so forth. And I'll let Dr. Kitui speak for himself, but we're really honored to have him here, particularly because we really made a last-minute request for him to be here after one of our panelists was unable to get here on time. So, Dr. Kitui, thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here, and I'm sure everybody would like to hear from you. At the end is Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Molekete, who is the Gender Envoy and Vice President at the African Development Bank, and that really has brought a significant change to the way the African Development Bank not only deals and approaches women's issues. It's no longer what we used to call a cross-cutting issue. It's now a key issue, and I think that is also changing even just the dynamic of gender within the bank. Mrs. Molekete, I would like you, to welcome you, to thank you very sincerely. You've done an amazing report. We were at the ADB annual meetings last week, and in fact, we've taken advantage of your 8 key recommendations to draw them into the policy recommendations that we want to hand to the leaders. So welcome, ma'am, and I'm sure everybody would like to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah, please, Doctor.
I think I thought gentlemen first this morning.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, it's a pleasure for me to be here. And the great artists, thank you very much for sharing this with us. We at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development have embraced the reality that for developing Africa, an investment in its daughters has much greater social return than investment in its sons. Not that it's not right to invest in sons, but that the double the benefits come with a greater attention to the potential of the African woman. This particularly so in a continent where, to a large extent, the goals of equal access to education still remains a pipe dream. In many societies, culture and other considerations are still holding back the opportunities and the investment in the daughters and development of their talent. Secondly, we have a program which is supporting of the creative industries. Actually, I have a branch which is fairly rapidly growing on creative industry. One of our main success stories is that many years ago, we nurtured one talent in Senegal, and now the world knows Youssou. What the world doesn't know is that the initial kick of Youssou was part of the creative industry of UNCTAD. Today, we are just completing a major comprehensive national creative industry review for Cape Verde, which is said to be a major player on the creative industry agenda on this continent. But more immediately home, I have a program that I really like. We call it Empretech, which is we put resources, particularly human resources, on helping grow women's enterprises. Every year we have an international competition about what are the most interesting success stories coming from particularly younger women across the world. Last year's winner was a small women group from Rwanda. This year it was a group from Jordan. And I'm hoping that we can inspire, can engage in dialogue on how best we can create synergies with initiatives like Kwana DDB on identifying and growing African talent, both in the creative arts and in enterprise, as our contribution to my motherland. Thank you very much for your attention.
Geraldine?
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks, Sipho, for this particular initiative and to the artists. I think it's amazing to hear the different voices on the African continent because we are, because you are. You know, I am because you are. And I think this very much comes through. At the African Development Bank, we are looking at a range of initiatives as the African institution that's taking forward in support and together with the African Union, the regional member countries, the Africa Inclusive and Green Growth Story. And we want to ensure that that inclusive growth story is indeed inclusive, where women are part, women and young people are part of the story. We felt that there was a need to do a few different things to follow where the money is. And generally, the money in the African Development Bank is in infrastructure. How do we ensure that women are part of it, and not only as beneficiaries, because roads will ensure greater accessibility to women, but that women are also part of the change that's being built, that women are there in productive capacities. Now, two things that I want to conclude with. Sipho's spoken about the gender index that we've brought out, where we've measured 52 out of the 54 African countries. You, in that index, see who's in the top 10. You also see who are, which countries are in the bottom 10. And we clearly said that there's a need to follow through to bring all countries at a level where gender equality is part of what development is and should be in countries. But secondly, and this is because as a financial institution, a development institution, we must ensure, as in the financial sector, that everyone appreciates that bringing the human capital, all the human capital of the African continent as part of the growth story, it makes a difference on the bottom line of companies and countries. And I think it's just logical. If you exclude half of your population, you won't have the vibrant growth that's required. And there's ample evidence to show that. So what do we do to raise this to a much greater degree? And I think my colleague at the front has spoken about it. The one issue that we are looking at very closely is the creative industries. And let me talk about something that we call fashionomics. We said that fashion globally is a $1.6 trillion industry. In Africa, it's about $300 billion, but it's not an industry per se in Africa. So we've actually encouraged, and I note that the head of UNTAD does have a maroon tie on, but we're encouraging people to color the boardrooms too. And we're saying, let's bring color in. As we've seen the artists also bring that, because we've got to turn this around. This is one area. And the reason we're calling it fashionomics is because it's about the economics in it. Second to agriculture, it's in the fashion industry that we have the second largest number of jobs by women. But we don't see them along the global value chain, and we need to keep them in. And with UNCTAD, we will make that happen. We'll do it from production, from the seed, from cotton to the end. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
Thanks very much. Well,
former politician.
I must stress we have a Swiss penchant for accurate timekeeping, and I'm delighted to be joined right towards the end, but last not at all least, by Omatola, Nigerian superstar, actress, Times 100 most influential person of the year 2013, and also Global Ambassador for the Poverty is Sexist campaign. Omatola, could you offer some insights into why you support this campaign?
Good morning, everyone. May I apologize for being late, fashionably, hopefully. So I am very delighted, extremely privileged to be here today. Also on the bill of most importantly, and that's because of the Poverty is Sexist campaign that I have chosen to join. And the reason why I chose to join this campaign is very obvious. Women need help. We've always needed help because we are always the gender that is, for lack of a better word, marginalized. A lot of women around the world have several issues, several challenges, and most times we do not have enough women in power to speak up for us. So it's a double jeopardy. You have all these issues and you still don't have people to speak for you. And the few who stand up to speak most times are not loud enough. And so for every campaign that comes up to speak for women, it is almost even too late, as it were. Poverty is Sexist this time around focuses on the issue of women around the world who are affected by economic status. And if you wanted to look at why this is happening, you would realize that it trickles down to how we actually live every day. From the minute a girl child is born, she almost is already at a disadvantage, you know. And it's not even a problem of just the third world countries. You would think that the civilized world would not have this issue, but we actually still do have this issue. And every geographical part of the world, you know, every continent has its own challenges, but this is something that unifies all of us. And this is what Poverty is Sexist is advocating, and this is why I'm very happy to be a part of this, to speak up for women, to say that when there is war, that we're just born because of culture, because of prejudice, because of how we ought to comport ourselves morally or otherwise. Our voices are being held down, and because of this, we are not able to empower ourselves and at large empower the nation. As you know, if you empower a woman, you empower a whole continent, you empower a whole people. And women, just because of our biological composition, are very, very tender. We're very, very helpful. Almost more than men, sorry. But it's the truth, I'm sure you know that. When you empower a woman, she doesn't really just think about herself. She thinks about her own children. She thinks about the children around her. And then what's more, she thinks about everybody else. Empower a woman today. And this is what Poverty is Sexist is advocating, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. An amazing campaign. Thank you very much indeed. This press conference is now closed.